Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Average Joe Sports Talk Saturday morning recap show brought to you by the Henry House in Gunnersville. Henry House is your premier destination for luxury vacation rentals in the heart of downtown Gunnersville. Our newly renovated historical home features 5 luxurious suites, each named after a different species of birds to give that southern flair. The ruffed grouse, blue heron, ruddy duck, Alabama yellowhammer, and the Eagle's Nest are sure to provide a unique and comfortable stay. We invite you to come experience the Henry House to see the transformation. So make sure to go check out Henry House there in Gunnersville. And Bo, me and you got to visit that place. That is a beautiful house up there. And if you're looking for a weekend getaway or something, the Henry House is the perfect place to go and visit.
Yeah. What he didn't mention in there is those moats. You remember those, Caleb?
Yeah.
Those, yeah, they're like electric vehicles that was featured in a James Bond movie, and you can rent those there. They're like a miniature car with no doors, and they're convertibles. So you can rent those and go all throughout Gunnersville, and it's very, very cool situation.
So welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Saturday morning recap show. Caleb Brooks, Corey LaBounty, and Bo Starkey here to talk about all the action from Thursday night and Friday night. Corey, you're our spokesperson down there in Mobile, and there was no bigger game than what we saw on ESPN last night as Saraland comes away with the victory over Lipscomb off of a missed extra point in overtime. But me and Luke were talking about it on the AHSAA broadcast last night after Lipscomb came in and defeated Thompson, who we would put up there as our best team in the state. It was huge for Saraland to get the win over Lipscomb last night.
Big time win, and who you have to feel bad for is the Lipscomb kicker. I mean, that third phase of the game is the one that always really goes unlooked, and something bad happened. And in this situation, the special teams, you could see his teammates console him immediately. But I think that with a packed house at Saraland High School, everyone definitely got their money's worth. For a while there, back and forth. But when you highlight certain athletes in the game, and then those athletes do produce, like Ryan Hollywood Williams, Antonio Coleman on the defensive side of the football, who has several Power 5 offers. ESPN, even though it went a little long, I guarantee they were happy with the high school product it produced.
So now we'll take a look back at some of our scores from Thursday night as we got the AHSAA season kicked off. Daphne defeated Murphy 19-0 down there around the Mobile area, but a score that surprised a lot of people, Corey. Fairhope, they were down 14-3 at halftime, and they come back to defeat Spanish Fort 17-14. And you have to feel like that was a huge win for Fairhope to get a win over Spanish Fort and really build some confidence back into that football program.
Absolutely. Tim Carter's done a phenomenal job with the Fairhope program, and Chase Smith taking over the Toros program in his second year, and Sterling Dixon Jr. comes over from Mobile Christian, a 3A Defensive Lineman of the Year, is added to an already tough defense. But really, you look at for 4 quarters of football, almost 3 1/3, it was all Spanish Fort, and Fairhope was able to have a couple of explosive plays late in the game and found a way to go ahead and take one in a huge non-region game here on the Eastern Shore. And again, when you look at the turnout for a Thursday night high school football game, 2 back-to-back nights on the Eastern Shore and in Saraland, to where you had phenomenal high school football.
Bo, Vestavia ends a 6-game losing streak to Mountain Brook, 35-10, dominant fashion for Coach Robert Evans over his former boss, Coach Chris Yeager. And Mountain Brook coming off of that state championship appearance last year, a lot of expectations heading into this season, but the Vestavia Rebels kind of let the rest of that region right there in 7A know, hey, we're here to play this season, and we're back to being what we expect Vestavia football to be.
You know what's shocking about that, Caleb, is what you and I talked about last year in Road to Blue Mount. They had 40 seniors. You remember that?
Yeah.
Vestavia had 40-plus seniors. And to lose those 40-plus seniors and then come back and beat a team like Mountain Brook soundly like that. And it's basically Luke Skywalker beating Yoda on top of that, because that was his boss, like you said, and a big mentor and influence of his. But to not only win, but win in dominant fashion like that, I think it surprised a lot of people and put Vestavia on the map big time as far as state contention.
Some other scores from Thursday night: Helena just dominates their way over Chelsea, 50-14. That's a hungry program after they missed the playoffs last season. Minor shuts out Huffman, 54-0. And Coach Adrian Abrams, he's been at Minor now for a couple of years and has really started to establish his program. And we've talked about it for a while for both of you. This is a sleeping giant program up there in Minor High School. And now Coach Abrams, who used to be at Hoover, getting them where they want them. We could be seeing Minor really make some big strides here this season.
Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that.
Knocking, and sooner or later,
That's
someone's
right.
going to open the door, and they're going to take that next step for that program.
That's exactly right.
Muscle Shoals with a 48-14 win over Bob Jones. And then up there around your area, Bo, ARAB just dominates Albertville, 34-6 on Thursday night. And kind of talk about that for a second. What a statement win for ARAB to get the season started.
Yeah, I've been talking to Lee Osment since Marshall County Media Days. He too lost a ton of seniors, close to 30 last year. He had a lot of seniors on that football team. But then anytime you play defense and you run the ball, that travels. And Lee Osment played linebacker at Alabama, obviously, and he has a linebacker on that team named Silva that's number 4 that is a college prospect that he doesn't have. I think he may have 1 to 2 small offers right now, but he kind of heads up that defense. He's what you would call a rover back. He puts him in many different positions. He Swiss Army knife on the defense, and he kind of spearheads that defense. But to win in dominant fashion like that, I know, albeit Albertville's been down some lately, but to make a statement come out of the box like that had to be huge from a confidence standpoint for ARAB.
Corey, Gulf Shores defeats St. Michael's 41-20 on Thursday. And Coach Philip Rivers, his son, young player, takes the field. He throws 50 passes in the ball game, but just not enough defensively to be able to stop Ronnie Royal and this offense from Gulf Shores.
Yeah, Ronnie Royal is a name that you'll probably see in contention for Mr. Football or some type of back of, in his classification, back of the year, because Ronnie Royal, when he transferred in from Gulf Shores, has just been a tremendous player for Coach Hudspeth at Gulf Shores. And Coach Hud, I mean, this is one of the toughest regions in the entire state of Alabama, 5-1. And there's going to be a good football team or two that aren't going to make the playoffs in that 5th and 6th seed at the end of the year. But I tell you, Gulf Shores is the real deal. And I will say this, for Philip Rivers being who he is, the name that he has, to go ahead and have the opportunity to coach his son and to see his son throw the football 50 times as a freshman, and to really be successful in all aspects of executing the offensive game. Gulf Shores is that much better at this point in time. But Coach Rivers is another program at St. Michael, been knocking on the door a couple of games short of the playoffs these last couple of years. I look forward for St. Michael to make some noise in their classification also.
Hey, didn't I say he has like 9 kids or something?
12.
How many?
12. Number 12.
Sorry.
So
Hey, Corey, Coach needs a hobby.
got one.
Jeez.
Got one.
Yeah, he's got one. You're right. Jeez. 12.
Some other notable scores from Thursday night. Andalusia picks up where they left off last year, 42-8 over Opp. They look to be strong again this season. And Bo, a game that you went to on Thursday night, Geraldine 26-0 over Coosa Christian. And look, Coosa Christian's the 1A school, Geraldine is the 3A school, but you kind of felt like that they would go and compete a little bit better. Talk a little bit about that game and what kind of went wrong for Coosa Christian.
It was a strange game because it was back and forth. Nobody really took hold of the game until, he does it each and every time. Carlos Mann from Geraldine finally ripped off a big, probably like 70-yarder and scored. But Coosa Christian was on the field too much. They were on the field defensively over 80 snaps. And I talked to Teddy Whitmire yesterday, and he said, for whatever reason, he said, we played pretty good defensively, but the sheer number of snaps wore them out. They couldn't really get in a rhythm offensively. John David never could set his feet. And as you said, this is not a normal 1A versus 3A team. This was a third round team in 3A and a semifinalist in 1A. And both teams come into the season with high expectations. Both teams return a lot of people. They're both led by great coaches in Michael Davis at Geraldine and Mark O'Brien at Coosa. And you got to give it to Geraldine to not only win but shut Coosa out was a statement. But this is North Alabama football, and Corey knows in South Alabama football it's the same thing. They have to turn right back around and face Fife. So they needed that win, and Coosa has to turn right back around and play perennial blue blood Spring Garden. So neither one of these teams, you can't get too high off a win like this, and you can't be down too much because you got to turn around and execute again next week.
Another big score, Mars Hill just dominates 6A Coleman 55-21. They look to be really strong again. And then this score surprised me on Thursday night. Reeltown 41-14 over Tallahassee. And, Reeltown being a 2A program, Tallahassee a 5A, you don't see that very often. You may see a 2A win, but not dominate in the fashion that Reeltown was able to dominate. But it looks like Coach Matt Johnson has another really good group down there at Reeltown here this season. And then another big one up in your area, Bo, Ohatchee 32-7 over Sac. So a dominant win there for Ohatchee and a really good start to the season for them.
Coach Finley last year, and you guys can look this up. Corey, I bet you didn't even know this. This is insane. They were 0-7 and made it to the playoffs.
Oh, 3 region wins late?
Yep. Started 0-7 and made it to the playoffs. And I said from that moment, now, when they started last season, it was injury after injury after injury. And everybody knows how dominant they were when Scott Martin was here. I think they made semifinalist appearance 2 times in 4 years, and albeit ran into 5, right? So, Coach Martin left and Coach Finley took over. And then I said, hey, if this guy can ever get an off season where everybody's healthy and they're rolling, they're going to turn this thing around. And everybody knows how talented Sachs has been with Jonathan Miller there departing. But obviously something was not right yesterday. Ohatchee executed. I seen them. I went to their spring game and actually hung out with John Holder at that event. But I seen them play there, and I was like, man, they do look better. But, man, I would have never expected to beat Sachs like that. 32-8, that was pretty dominant.
Dominant win. So we'll now turn our attention over to Friday. But before we do that, I want to tell you more about the Henry House. This episode here of the Average Joe's Saturday Morning Recap is brought to you by the Henry House. Our luxury suites provide the perfect combination of classic elegance and modern luxury. Each suite has a unique blend of style and sophistication, from a classic New Orleans feel to a Miami chic. Our impeccable attention to detail ensures that guests will experience the highest level of comfort and relaxation. Our suites are perfect for any style, from romantic getaways to business trips. With our luxurious amenities, you can be sure to enjoy an unforgettable stay. So make sure to go up and check out the Henry House in Gunnersville, Alabama. If you're heading on vacation and looking for somewhere to go and hang out on the weekend, it is the perfect place for you to be. So flipping our attention now to the action last night in the game, you do a coach's show with this guy, Bo, right there at the top of the screen. Anniston 38-22 over Walter Welborn. Honestly, I think you got to give Walter Welborn a lot of credit. This is a group that me and you called last year as they played against Dayville. We got to see them. They competed really well in this ball game, but just not enough there for Coach Jackson and his group there at Anniston as he gets his first win as the new Anniston coach.
We sat in with him Tuesday at Kia in Oxford, and Coach Jackson, the number one thing I liked about the man, outside of the fact that him and Corey LaBounty's friends, is he did not make a single excuse. They had 2 D1 guys transfer out. They had several guys graduate, including Raquez and company, Jalen Cunningham. But Coach Jackson said, you know what? Yeah, we had some guys leave, but guess what? We still got some guys in that locker room, and I'm not making no excuses. He said, we're going to be as advertised. And anytime a coach comes in there and don't start with the woe with me, so-and-so left, and this person transferred, and I can't get this guy to play, I'm for it. But he knew going up against Jeff Smith, opening the season up here at Walter Welborn, he knew that was going to be a tough game. And for Coach Jackson to get that win in a county rivalry right off the hop, it has to be huge for the Anniston program and confidence.
Auburn High School travels up to Hoover and just absolutely dominates the Hoover Bucks. That is not something that we are used to seeing there at the Hoover Met. A 25-point victory, 39-14, and coming off of the state championship appearance last year for Auburn High School and not the result they wanted in the state championship game. What a statement win for Coach Etheridge and his group to go up there to Hoover and really kind of show everybody, hey, we have some aspirations to get back to that state championship, and this time we want to be holding up one of those blue mats.
Yeah, it was interesting because, Ty Hunt, who's Will Wagden's brother-in-law, is one of my best friends. He's actually a sponsor of Average Joe's as well. He was sending me updates of that game, and it wasn't like I was shocked, but I was surprised. You know what I mean? Corey will vouch for this. It's hard to bet against Keith Etheridge. The guy's won every single place he went, and you team him up with a Will Wagden and Auburn High School when you get all the resources, and there is, they have everybody's pulling in the same direction, and that thing starts churning and peaking out. I mean, look, they hit Thompson at the wrong time last year. They hit Thompson when they was peaking. Had they hit Thompson that played Lipscomb or early in the season, that game would have been a lot different. But they caught him when Trent Seaborn had his legs under him and was rolling. So outside of that, Keith Etheridge had another blue map last year. So I ain't gonna say I was like just shocked, but I was very surprised that they went and did that to Hoover.
Corey, tell me about your reaction when you saw that score last night.
Unfinished business. I mean, you take that motivation for that nasty state championship loss, and you for motivation, and you try to go ahead and run the gauntlet. It's always hard to go undefeated in high school football. Especially when you're playing a national schedule such as Maryland or such as Thompson. And at the end of the day, all you want to do is hold up that blue map. But to see another opponent across the sidelines dominate you in the state championship game, that's motivation for the following year to know unfinished business, and for Auburn to go ahead and say, hello, we're going to pick up right where we left off. Coach Etheridge, again, Bo, you mentioned it, unfinished business for Auburn. Would not be surprised here on the blue map that Auburn is not playing for another state championship.
Two scores from around your area, Corey. BC Rain gets a 34-14 win over AHSAA to get the season started. Big win for them. And then Baker, a win over Theodore. Maybe surprising there with Coach Mask making his return to the Mobile area. They ruin his trip back as they get a 36-20 win. Talk about those two wins for BC Rain and Baker.
BC Rain breaks in their brand new stadium versus AHSAA. Of course, the Mobile County Public School System providing 5 new stadiums to schools here, and the BC Rain Red Raiders program, one of those stadiums. They were playing AHSAA, a team that BC Rain was beaten by a year ago, so they had to wait 365 to get their payback. But what better way to get your payback than to christen and open up your brand new stadium on campus with a huge win? And congratulations to Coach Yeldon and the Red Raiders for getting that win. But when you look at even more impressive win to me is Steve Norman and the Baker Hornets, because you have Josh Flowers, who's verbally committed to Mississippi State. Then you have Bryce Kane, who was verbally committed to Auburn. This is only his second year of high school football being played. He comes over, and all of a sudden, because he runs a 4-3, Bryce Kane gets offered by the Auburn Tigers, and Hugh Freeze in only his second. Yesterday was his second year of football period in his life. And here it is, he's catching passes from an SEC quarterback, and Josh Flowers connected early and often, and Baker ends a long losing streak to the Theodore Bobcats. I believe that's the first over Theodore in maybe 6 or 7 years.
Game that I was keeping up with last night as I was calling the Thompson and Opelika game, Benjamin Russell, a 40-19 win over Wetumpka, a statement win. It was 33-7 at one point in that ball game. And, Bo, we got to see Benjamin Russell up close and personal. I'm going to be going and watching them in Central Clay as they take on Coach Danny Horn next week. But just so many weapons for this offense for Benjamin Russell. Gabe Benton, now a third-year quarterback who threw for almost 3,000 yards last season. And their offense last night was just way too much for Wetumpka to handle, but they won it on special teams. 2 blocked punts. The opening kickoff of the game hit off of a guy for Wetumpka, and then Benjamin Russell recovered it. And Really special teams was the name of the game for Benjamin Russell, but a statement win for them in 6A over a really good Wetumpka team who was able to make it into the postseason last year. And, really good for them to get the season started the way that they did last night. And then a couple other scores from around there. Brookwood, a big dominant win over Holt to get the season started. And then Centerpoint, they take on Tylertown, Mississippi, and get a big win. It's always good when we have people from this state getting wins over teams from other states as well. And so now some other scores. Central Phoenix City, they head up to Hewitt-Trussville last night and just absolutely dominated the Hewitt-Trussville Huskies. We talked about how big it was for Auburn to go get a win at Hoover. But Corey, talk a little bit about how big it was for Phoenix City to travel up to Hewitt and really dominate as they double them up and win by 24 points.
Central Phoenix City is just that consistent program, and you look at the ability that they possess. They're another team that here at the end of the year, Caleb, we've seen to where sometimes within your own region you can get beat up on a little bit, but it's about, all right, well, we've seen it in the past years with Hoover and Thompson. You can beat me in the regular season, but then I beat you in the postseason for all the marbles. I mean, that's what it's all about. And Central of Phoenix City is just a first-class program that works tremendously hard. And be surprised again, if, depending on how healthy they stay in the postseason when we start looking in November and early December, that they may be making a trip and trying to secure that blue map as well.
Another score that really stood out, Clay Chalkville 31-0 over Briarwood last night. They beat them 48-0 last season. And, Briarwood, this is a program that missed the playoffs for the first time in 33 years last year. They obviously are hungry and we're looking to get off to a lot better start. But for Clay Chalkville, this is a group that's hungry as well. They fall in the first round to Parker in an upset last season. And, now with Jalen Mbakwe, the Alabama commit at quarterback, playing quarterback now for Clay Chalkville, going to be a different look offense for them, but a really nice win for them to get the season started on the road and kind of show the rest of 6A, hey, we're still going to be right there competing for a state championship again.
Athletes galore, and you mentioned the best athlete possibly in the state of Alabama, and Bob, looking forward later on in the season seeing that matchup on ESPN, a primetime matchup with Thompson and Clay Chalkville. And when you have those type of Power 5 guys, those type of dudes that are ranked in the top 15 in the country, not only at their position, but overall, a team, again, you don't want to be a one-man show, but it sure helps to have those type of guys on your roster.
Bo, we're talking about Clay Chalkville over Briarwood last night, 31-0, and two programs really coming into the season with something to prove. But what did that show you last night, seeing that 31-0 score by Clay Chalkville as they look to get back to the state championship?
I don't know if you can name a team that was more disappointed and shocked at what transpired last year in the playoffs than them. And shout out to Frank Warren, who was doubted all year last year. Comes in there and defeats those guys 7-6 in the first round of the playoffs and just sent shockwaves throughout the state because they were favored to win again. They were defending champions coming in, rolling. And this is before the emergence of Saraland had been good all year, but they had to go prove it and eventually did. But I don't know, man. Drew Gilmer is consistency. You know what I mean? He loses Matt Glover, and then they still had arguably one of the best defenses overall in the state of Alabama last year. That's fast, physical, and to open up with a shutout is really unbelievable. You got to give your hats off to him because, again, it's what I like about high school football and even college football. The players rotate, but the good programs and good coaches know how to figure it out year in and year out. They stay at the top. It don't matter who's playing for them. And at a big-time school like that with a large number of people, to do it, it's even more impressive, in my opinion, than to do it at a smaller school system. But I mean, it's not taking a shot at a 2 or a 3A guy that stays on top, but to do it consistently at a 6A, 7A, it's a different level.
Another score right here on our screen stands out. Demopolis defeats American Christian 29-20. That's a big score there in 4A. Those are two teams that a lot of people feel like can go and compete for a 4A state championship. And This score kind of stood out to me last night, Corey. Enterprise defeating Eufaula 63-14, and just a dominant win there for Coach Blackman, who has made the move up there from Spanish Fort to Enterprise. And you look at that region that they have to compete in with Auburn and Opelika and Phoenix City and Prattville, Dothan, all the Montgomery schools there. Really good win for Enterprise to get the season started and get Coach Blackman's tenure started there.
Opportunity to see them come down here and play Saraland in the Jamboree. You know what they're capable of, and you know that, hey, he took that spring game and worked on the deficiencies that he felt he needed to address. And this is another tremendous region to where you look at teams 5 and 6 that aren't going to make the playoffs, and sometimes that 5 and 6 could go in and beat another region's 1 or 2 as missing the playoffs at 5 and 6. So you love those competitive regions. Coach Blackman, again, he's won a state championship. He's played for state championships for reasons, and he had attacked this Enterprise job with a lot of joy and is going to continue to make a difference. But 63 points on the opening week of high school football, that's trying to make a statement for sure.
Corey, that's how you do people on Madden.
Yeah. Absolutely. Get them off the stick.
Corey, our buddy Stacy Mills is not going to be too happy about us talking about this game here, but Foley just dominates Prattville last night, 45-19. And talk about this Foley team a little bit and really how big that win was for them.
Huge win. I mean, when you look at Derek Scott taking over the Foley program, going kind of from worst to first within a tough 7A Region 1 a year ago, having a phenomenal wide receiver and athlete like Perry Uno Thompson, who was initially committed to Alabama, flipped over to Auburn here after Big Cat weekend. That's a great weapon to have. I mean, I think that, again, Coach Scott has done a tremendous job revitalizing the Foley program. And look, once you get that first taste of success that they received a year ago by winning 7A Region 1, they're like, look, we're not going to be a one wonder. We're looking to go ahead and establish ourselves as a bona fide name in high school football, not only in Southwest, Southeast Alabama, but throughout the entire state.
Bo, Gadsden City 37-20 over Carver Montgomery last night. Really good win for Gadsden City to get their season started, and a really important win for Coach Ollie Smith.
Hey, Corey, you're going to love this story. So I mentioned this in media days to Coach Smith. We used to do his coach's show at Chick-fil-A up here. In the first year, they were 0-9, and he leaned over to Reggie and I, and he said, hey, guys, don't leave me. He said, I promise you, don't leave me. He said, stay with me. We said, Coach, we ain't going nowhere. I mean, you can go 0-10. You can go 0-10 next year. We're loyal. You know what I mean? He said, I'm going to turn this thing around. This thing needs to be turned around. I'm going to do it. So then you fast forward to what you seen last night. Now, who would have thought? Lowly Gadsden City. Everybody dogs them out and takes shots in the news and the media about how they never compete. They're not on that level. They'll never get it done over there. He comes out with a statement win last night. And I was not shocked at all because I know how hard those guys over there work. And I also know what he had coming back and was healthy. That's the key, because last year they come into the season with their quarterback gone. Luke was injured before the season started. He didn't even get to play. And then when he did get in, it was just sparingly. And so they had to throw Matthew Sparks in at quarterback, who is, another sponsor of ours, son. But they had to throw him at quarterback, and he was super young. So he didn't have the reps or the gameplay skills that they did. But Corey, you probably remember this name, Andy Swafford. I don't know if you know Andy Swafford, that played with those Gadsden High teams with Jimmy Williams. Okay, he's got a son on this team that plays wide receiver, that's phenomenal athlete. And then you got TJ Worthy, which is Pooh Worthy from Etowah's son, that plays running back on this team. So they've actually got a healthy roster, and they're loaded coming into the season. Last year they won the region championships, but man, to beat a team like Carver Montgomery is really, really good. But to do it on your home turf up here in Gadsden is even better. I mean, that was a huge win for Ollie Smith and the Gadsden City Titans.
Looking at some other scores, Gunnersville, we've been talking about the Henry House up there in Gunnersville. They get a big win over Southside Gadsden last night, Bo, and a much needed win for them to get the season started. And exactly what they were looking for, 14-10 win, really good defense from the Gunnersville Wildcats. And this is a program we saw a couple of years ago. They got put on that statewide stage, being down there in the Kickoff Classic, and didn't play as good defensively. So they had to be really proud of what they were able to do on that side of the ball last night, holding the Southside Gadsden offense to 10.
Well, I can tell you, Caleb, you hit the nail on the head because Southside, they have a quarterback, Gage Neesmith's been a 3-year starter now. That is a dude. He's getting recruited, and he's poised. He has tons of weapons, on that side of the football too. With Scotty Moats and McMichaels and others. But the thing about it was to hold them, Coach Miles Holcomb, who was at Hoover, obviously at Southside, to hold them to 10 points is unbelievable to me. And Coach Reese's 14th year at Gunnersville, I'm not surprised that they did it. I kudos to them to execute. I thought that game was a really, like, if they had a point spread, that would have probably been a 2 to 3 point spread either way. But to execute like that, and Gunnersville had some injuries coming into that game. That's what really was impressive about it, because they come out and not only execute, but they grind, get a gritty win late. That's huge for Gunnersville program, man. And yes, you're right. Wes Long himself is from Gunnersville, Alabama, so that's a huge win for their program.
Another score that me and you have talked about during our Road to the Blue Map show, Hanley, a 22-8 win over Valley as well last night. A good win for them to get the season started, but I look for Valley to be pretty competitive there in 5A in a tough region there with Central Clay, Beauregard, Tallahassee, and all them in there as well. Before we switch it over to some more scores, I want to tell you about the Henry House in Gunnersville. Make sure to check out the Henry House. If you're looking for somewhere to vacation, I'm telling you, think about Gunnersville, Alabama. The lake is beautiful up there, and the Henry House has 5 luxurious suites for you to rent out and stay in as you stay right across the lake. There's so much to do up there in Gunnersville. It's a city that not a ton of people think about when they think about vacationing, but it is something that you're going to want to start thinking about going forward. Gunnersville is such a beautiful place, and we do our Road to the Blue Map show up there every single week, Bo, and every week when it comes around, I keep telling you how excited I am to head up to Gunnersville and be around that Gunnersville area. So if you're thinking about vacationing, make sure to think of the Henry House. You can go and Google Henry House in Gunnersville, find more information on them, see how you can get in touch and start finding a place to stay there in Gunnersville. So flipping it over to some more scores now here. Looking down some of these, J.B. Pennington, a good win over Hayden last night to get the season started, a program that we talk a lot about. Here's one that really stands out to me up in the Birmingham area. John Carroll, a 36-31 win over the Homewood Patriots last night to get their season started. Huge win there for John Carroll, a program that has been on the rise. Coach Will Mara there now has started to really kind of establish what he once done. He was the middle school coach. He's really kind of moved up with a lot of these guys, and a big win for them. This is for people that don't know the locations. I mean, Homewood and John Carroll are literally right down the street from each other, and so a big win right there for John Carroll to get the season started over Homewood. And Homewood, they're in that tough region there with Benjamin Russell and Briarwood, Helena, Pelham, Chilton County, Calera. Tough start to the season for them, and it's not going to get any easier on down the line as they get into region play.
Hey, Caleb, best weight room in the state. I'm calling it.
At Homewood. Yeah.
Corey, have you seen that?
Yeah.
Have you seen their weight room?
On video, it's better than most college weight racks.
Caleb and I went in there. Man, I had to video it and send it out. I mean, I had never seen nothing like that. It's incredible what they got going on. But you're right, Caleb. I mean, that's literally a football toss away from each other, basically, right there in the Homewood area. John Carroll being across the street from the old Wildwood Cinemas, if you know where that's at. Very centrally located, and that is a rivalry game. I mean, I remember back in the 2000s and early 2000s and late 90s, those two had some wars over there. And that one shocked me, Caleb. I ain't gonna lie, that one shocked me. I knew they were, John Carroll had gotten better, but I didn't know they was on that level to beat a Homewood yet.
Another score from right around your area, Bo. Jacksonville. You do a coach's show up there with them, 40-21 over Boaz. A big win for Coach Clint Smith to get the season started over a really good Boaz program.
Very good. Coach Sullivan has done a good job at Boaz adding other coaches. He added Shay Monroe, who's a head coach. He added Dusty Darnell as a head coach. And he's got a lot of experience on that staff. His problem coming into this year is they were giving up over 30 points a game defensively last year. And they were looking to stop that. Well, Jim Ogles, the 3 stars, Jimmy Ogles, former offensive coordinator from Jacksonville State's son, is a quarterback at Jacksonville. And he's tough, man. I mean, if they didn't run into Catholic, and they fought Catholic tooth and nail in the playoffs last year, that's who eventually put them out. But I knew coming into his senior year, he was going to be outstanding. And it's hard to stop a quarterback like that. Corey knows. I mean, you see it all across the state. And Corey mentioned it earlier. If you got one guy to key on, so to speak, sometimes it works. And they've got more than one guy. They got a lot of targets to throw to, but it all hinges off Jim Ogles Jr. He's about 6'3". He'll go about 210. He's a big kid. He's got a strong arm to make any throw on the field. And anytime you play Jacksonville this year, you better have some DBs and you better have some guys that can get to the quarterback. If not, you might as well get ready for a 40-point outing.
Another score that stands out here, James Clemens getting a 26-21 win over Gardendale. They will be playing Mountain Brook on the AHSAA game of the week this coming week. A good start to the season there. I mean, Coach Chad Eads has done such a great job at Gardendale High School, and they had Clay Chalkville beat during Clay Chalkville State Championship season a couple of years ago there in the 3rd round. And so a good win for James Clemens there to get their season started at 26-21. They'll take on Mountain Brook on Thursday night. You'll be able to watch that all over the state on NFHS Network and WOTM. And then Corey, score from down around your area, LaFleur, really gets the season started off on a good note, 33-6 over Chickasaw.
That's my alma mater, so I'll go ahead and brag for a moment. In a 23-game losing streak, meaning you've gone, if you're a junior and you graduate junior, senior year, your upperclassmen years, you didn't win a football game after you graduated last year. And when you look at the freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors that Renardo Jackson has brought in and got to buy in, when you break in another brand new stadium here in the Mobile County Public School System, the great name, the Snake Pit, is what they're calling the LaFleur Rattlers Stadium there in Tomobile. So congratulations to the LaFleur Rattlers ending that 23-game losing streak in football, and they were able to do so in a dominant fashion against the Chickasaw Chiefs. It's a big-time win for LaFleur when you look at that.
And then Bo, Lincoln, 31-7 over Talladega. A good start to the season there for Lincoln up there around your area as well. And so now flipping it over to some more scores from around the state. And Corey, Mary Montgomery, 41-2 over Williamson last night. And not that necessarily the result surprises me, but it's the score that really surprises me there.
Well, I will say this. Williamson was without probably 3 or 4 of their top players for discipline reasons. And anytime you have, at any point in time in the season, when you're lacking players due to injury or discipline issues, it always is horrible on a head coach and the teammates, because now you're having someone thrust into the spotlight who's probably not ready. And Williamson High School, one of those schools that grades 7 through 12 are underneath one roof at Williamson High School. So all those kids go to school together. MGM, very impressive performance. Now, again, they're a preseason top 10 team in 7A, have never been ranked in the preseason or postseason while they've been a member of 7A football. And, you look at what Olsen has been able to accomplish with the Mary G. Montgomery team. They started off last year 0-4, finished up the season with 6 consecutive regular season, made it to the playoffs. And they have a quarterback, Jared Hollins, who is verbally committed to South Alabama. And they also have a 1,500-yard wide receiver in James Bolton returning as well to go along with a tremendous running back in Flowers. So I think that when you look at MGM and the direction that program is going, they have a chance to make history. 7A Region 1 football, but congratulations to them. Tough loss for Williamson again, 41-0 at halftime. We were on a running clock in the third and fourth quarter.
Mobile Christian gets the win over Athens Academy out of Georgia, 41-21, and that's after losing a really good player here in the offseason that decided to transfer and go over to Spanish Fort. And so a big win there for Coach Cottrell and his group there at Mobile Christian to get the season started over Athens Academy out of Georgia. As we said, we always love to see teams from the state of Alabama beat people from other states.
Hey, how big is that, man? Before you talk, Corey, we're getting some of these because last year we were embarrassed in week 0. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Across the state.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And impressive when anytime, I don't care if it's Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, anytime you are able to defeat another state, great representation last night. Did we run the table across the board? No, we did not. But as a whole, Bo, you hit the nail on the head as far as better representation, and especially in that national spotlight. Anytime you have ESPN that comes calling, you don't want to embarrass your state because you're putting on for your state, not just your school. And again, Mobile Christian, big time win over Athens Academy, 41-21. Mobile Christian jumps up 24-0. Now, this is the team down here in Mobile. Prior to Sterling Dixon Jr. transfer, I picked to probably play for state championship. And here it is. They've rallied around losing a player such as Sterling Dixon Jr. and are putting themselves in a position to go 1-0 every week. And Coach Cottrell, the great veteran coach he is, look to hear and see things from the Leopards deep in November.
Another score, and both of you guys can talk about this one here. We'll start with you, Corey. Montgomery Catholic comes and beats McGill again for a second straight year now, 21-0 in this ball game, just dominating defensively. But for McGill, this is a program that was 7A at one time, competing for 7A state championships, and not, obviously Montgomery Catholic really good, but to get shut out in their opening game, not a good start to the year for them.
No, not the start that you wanted if you're David Faulkner. David Faulkner taking over this McGill-Tulane program in his first year. I think it is going to take this year of adjustment to get the Yellow Jackets program back to where you once saw it playing for state championships. And I think that as a whole, 21-0, you wanted to find some kind of consistency offensively. But when you jump out of the fryer into the frying pan, as far going right into region play, 6A Region 1 is tremendously tough because, again, we're talking about Saraland. We're talking about Matty T. Blunt. We're talking about Theodore. You have a tremendously tough 6A Region 1 that McGill-Tulane's a part of.
I think from the Catholic side of that, Caleb, Kirk Johnson has been right there knocking on the door since he took over. It seems like things changed from the second half of that 5 championship game when Aubrey Blackwell was up there at Catholic, and they were winning 16-0. And since then, something's changed. They've dominated, but they've been right there on the doorstep. And just like in that game, they were on the doorstep of winning the state championship. Well, Kirk Juice Johnson has definitely maintained that bar there, and he'll tell you he don't put it off on anybody else. He puts it on himself. He said he hasn't got it done. It's another thing I like about him. And have Caleb McCreary's senior year right here and see what that kid, how special he is, and to see what he can do for them this year is going to be phenomenal. But the most impressive thing out of that game last night was the shutout. I mean, to shut McGill out, that says a lot for Juice's defense because he's a defensive guy himself, and I know if they had any question marks, it would have been on the defensive side of the ball. So that was huge for them.
Bo, this is a game that we had been looking forward to all week and talking about. Moody ends up defeating Pell City 28-24 last night. But Coach Probst has to be really, really happy with the performance his group was able to put on. And that's got to give a lot of confidence to Pell City and that Pell City community going forward with how they were able to compete with a Moody team that scored a lot of points last season and had a really good year themselves.
I'm gonna start with Jake Gaines in this one. Year in and year out, anytime somebody comes in with change, and Corey will attest to this, people complain. He don't dress like we do. He don't act like us. Well, here's problem with that right there. Most of them people that say stuff like that is the people that's had a hand on that wheel that's driven that program into the ground. There has to be friction where there's change. And Jake Gaines come in, changed the mindset, changed the look, changed the uniforms, changed everything at Moody, field house, weight room. And he's done nothing but positive things for the Moody community. Well, guess what? Pell City seen what they was doing. They seen Coosa Christian had hired Rush Probst. So they said, you know what? We're going to do that here. We're going to empty everything, all of our resources out. We're going to bring in arguably one of the greatest coaches in high school history over here, and we're going to turn it over to him and get out of his way. And that's what they've done. Now, in that short period of time that Rush has been there, everything's changed, and I mean everything. I didn't think they would compete like that on that level just yet. They shocked me and a bunch of other people, and is actually leading Moody 10-0 in that game before they eventually lost. But what an impressive victory for both teams. Jake Gaines and company handling adversity, coming back winning, and Rush Probst jumping out like he did on a Moody team that we know is going to be poised and good and battle leads for that region.
Mortimer Jordan gets a big 31-28 win over Leeds last night. I think that's a little bit of a surprising score there. Mortimer Jordan trying to get back. We've seen them compete for state championships as well. They're trying to get back to that level. But, Leeds, they were right there with Coach Hood last season, competing and getting close to being able to go play for state championships. So kind of a surprising result there. North Sand Mountain, 15-0 over Valley Head, a good win for North Sand Mountain to get the season started up there in your area. We did a coach's show with Oak Mountain last year, 38-30 against Northridge, and a good way to get their year started and a new era there for them as they have a new head coach that came in from California. Aniana, a 55-24 win over Cleveland. Good one to get the season started there. But this is what I wanted to get to right here. You do a coach's show with Coach Sam Adams. How important was this win last night, Bo? Their first ever win against McAdory, and they come away with a 33-23 win to get the season going.
I can't explain how huge that is. And this is how insane of a society we live in. There's rumblings of people not happy with Sam's, at Oxford. He's on the hot seat. I'm like, what do you want the guy to do? Keith Etheridge leaves. They graduate 20-something seniors. They have about 12 guys transfer out, and he still wins the region in his first year. Now think about that. And then last year, they did have a setback year, quote unquote setback year, but he was hit with the injury bug. I think they finished 5-6 last year. But we knew coming into this year, if they're healthy and he can keep Mason Mims upright, they're going to be fine. Mason Mims, a 3-star quarterback. I actually was down there over the summer with Coach Rowell from the girls. It was the girls coach at Skyline. The boys coach at Skyline. Was down here at Jacksonville watching the tournament. We stopped by to see Sam Adams in the new facility, the $20-something million athletic facility they've built on campus there. And he was throwing for Miami that day. He's that type of quarterback. So to break that 4-0 curse that they had of McAdory and to do it by double digits, way to start the season out. Kudos to Sam Adams. If anybody don't think this guy can coach football, you're kidding yourself. Huge win for them.
No doubt about it. And so looking at some more scores, Parker just dominates Fairfield last night, 55-0. A good start to the year for them. Pelham defeats Jackson Olin, 21-6. Another score from around the Montgomery area. Pinson Valley gets an 18-3 win over Florence to start their season. Up there around your area, Bo, 21-14. Plainview gets a good win over Priceville to get their year started. It's a Priceville team that went 11-1 last year. And, now with Coach Pruitt being back for his 27th total year, his second year being back at Plainview. Very good start to the year for them. Pleasant Grove dominates 7A Smith Station, 54-14 last night. Really impressive win there. Ramsey and Hueytown, they had some crazy stuff that went on during that ball game, but Ramsey ends up coming away with a 28-14 win, picking up right where they left off as they won the 5A state championship last year over I can't even think of who I was trying to talk about down there in Troy that they ended up beating for the state championship last year. Charles Henderson. Yeah, there you go. I couldn't get their name out. So appreciate
that, Corey. Past Corey, my friend. That's a walking encyclopedia from Mobile, Alabama, baby.
No doubt about it. And then we talked about it earlier. Saraland, a big 31-30 win over Lipscomb Academy in overtime. It was a missed extra point from Lipscomb. that allowed Saraland to get that win there on ESPN. Satsuma, they defeat McIntosh last night 26-6 to get their season started. So a really good win for them as well. And then looking at some more scores coming up here for us. Once I get them pulled up. Scottsboro, they defeat Fort Payne last night, both 56-51. What a shootout there in that ball game. And Coach Bell, who made the move from Oak Mountain up there to Scottsboro, really good start for them to get the season going with that 56-51 win. Spain Park defeated Calera last night 55-0. This is a game that was a 10-7 game last year, but it looks like Coach Vakakis has maybe found a little bit of offense there at Spain Park this season, and they could be a team to watch out for. And then St. James, you're defending 3A state champions. They defeat Montgomery Academy. We thought this was going to have a chance to be a really good ball game, but St. James just picking up where they left off last night, 49-13 there in that win. And then Corey, talk about this rivalry game down there. St. Paul's a 14-7 win over UMS Wright last night. Coach Terry Curtis and his group, not the start they were looking for, especially offensively, only getting 7 points against St. Paul's last night.
When you lose a player like Cole Blaylock, who was Mr. Everything for UMS Wright 1 year ago, Cole goes on to commit to South Alabama and is now a South Alabama Jaguar. Cole was probably 80 to 85% of what the Bulldogs were doing offensively and defensively. And, you know, you look at the GOAT and Terry Curtis, the winningest football coach in the history of the state of Alabama and high school football. I think that this Battle of Old Shell Road, two schools that are less than 5 miles apart, located on the same street. It's a bitter rivalry, and it's one of those rivalry games that instead of used to being played in week number 10 or 11, now it's played right at the beginning of the season. And we talked about that at Media Days to both Ham Barnett, who's the coach of St. Paul's, and Terry Curtis. Hey, when do you think the best time to play that rivalry is? And he's like, look, we like it in the last week. But being at the beginning of the year too, it's over and done with now, and we focus not only on our big rivalry, but we can get back to getting ready to making the playoffs, and that's what's important. But big win by Ham Barnett. Of course, Ham Barnett, they have Anthony Tank Jones, which is the number 1 ranked 2026 prospect in the country. And folks, if you have an opportunity, go out and see his huddle film or go watch his highlights, see St. Paul's play. He's one of those guys, I don't even have to tell you his number because he's automatically going to stick out to you anytime. Number 1 prospect in the country, not just at your position, but in the country. That lets you know what kind of athlete that Ham Barnett has for the St. Paul Saints. But a big-time rivalry win for St. Paul's.
Two other scores from down around your area, Corey. Sweetwater, 42-28 over Clark County last night. A good win for a very historical program that is always right there competing for state championships. And then T.R. Miller in overtime, 26-20 over Hillcrest Evergreen. Talk a little bit about those two games and those two wins for those two programs to get this season started.
T.R. Miller, historic football program, big-time win for them over Hillcrest Evergreen. Of course, Hillcrest Evergreen doesn't get any easier for them as they're going to be taking on the Davidson Warriors, which is a 7A program next week, as Davidson will officially open their home stadium. They had a G3 at it last night versus Baldwin County, but official opening for Davidson next week, taking on Hillcrest. Hillcrest is going to be salty. The only good thing for Hillcrest is you can take what you learned in this loss and apply it and try to beat a 7A program. Now, look at T.R. Miller, and T.R. Miller is just one of the programs every single year. You know that they're going to make the playoffs, and it's just a matter of how deep are they going to go and who's going to be their toughest competition.
Another score that I did this ball game last night, Thompson 44-13 over Opelika. You know, obviously me and Luke Robinson got to see that there in person. But when both of you guys saw that score, Corey, we'll start with you. Kind of tell me what your thoughts were when you saw that last night, the Thompson able to get a dominant 31-point win over Opelika to get the season started.
Mark Freeman, And it just, that's all you have to say, Mark Freeman, because it doesn't matter who is his quarterback. It doesn't matter who is his defensive back. It doesn't matter who his special teams players are. It's just Mark Freeman. Mark Freeman getting it done every single level. My absolute favorite coach in the entire state of Alabama is Mark Freeman, from time down here at Gold Stars and Spanish Ford to leaving us to turn around a Thompson program to the dynasty and juggernaut that it is. But again, Thompson, there's perfection, and he does a tremendous job leading young men the right way. When you put now a ninth grade quarterback who was very successful and was really America's story as an eighth grader, winning a state championship in the largest classification in the state of Alabama, how humble Mr. Seaborn is. And when you have a humble, great leader, he's a reflection of his head coach. So, Caleb, you guys got the opportunity to witness to what I call the best team in the entire state of Alabama, one of the best programs in the entire country, continue to carry the torch for the state of Alabama.
Bo, what were your thoughts when you saw that score last night and just saw that dominant win over Thompson?
I'm gonna echo what Corey said, because, man, the guy. I mean, you win 4 straight 7A titles, and then this is the year that they're down. This is the year that it's not going to happen. And if those who do not know, Opelika is loaded with guys, and to do it at a neutral site like that in a, quote unquote, I'm not going to say Super 7 atmosphere, but definitely a playoff type atmosphere. Just more of what Corey said. And then Trent Sebring they needed to play somebody with athletes, because they have a short week turnaround and they're playing the best team in the nation. We're going to be at that game this week when IMG Academy comes and visits Alabaster, Alabama. So they needed that win. They needed to get the guys out early. They needed a good look versus athletes, and they got all of that. And just echoing what Corey said, if something's not wrong with you, you have to like Mark Freeman. You have to like him. The guy's a great coach, but he's an even better person. There is no, that I've seen, no hidden baggage or something there. The guy, no, he is him, and he wins everywhere he goes. And Corey nailed it, and that's about all I got to say on it, honestly.
Last group of scores here for us. We rounded out W.S. Neal, big win over Georgiana last night. Wadley defeats Horseshoe Bend 35-7. We saw Wadley play for a 1A state championship against Sweetwater or against Clark County a couple years ago. I can't remember which one they played. Weaver up in your area, good win over Donahoe last night. Bo, 40-13. Good for Weaver to get things started. They try to turn their year around after last year. And then Westbrook Christian, they defeat John Paul 42-27. Known a little bit more for their basketball up there at Westbrook Christian, or I was thinking of Westminster Christian, but Westbrook Christian getting things started there with Coach Smith. Big win for them as they start his era there at Westbrook Christian. And St. John Paul II, a good football program. And so nice start for Coach Steve Smith as he moves over from Piedmont to Westbrook Christian and gets that era started there on a positive note.
Very big win, and had some adversity, was trailing in that game at one point, but to come back and win in this short turnaround again for Coach Smith, because he didn't take that job until summer.
Yeah.
He finished his entire year at Piedmont, then took that job. And Westbrook set up a little different than other schools. They're going through a transition period with new equipment, new weight room, new gym, new indoor hitting facility had been remodeled, new turf. So to have all those distractions going on, but to have Steve Smith, and then he brought his right-hand coach Blanchard in, to have them have those guys dialed in. I knew they were going to be a little bit better than what people thought. They thought this is going to be a little bit tougher project now, albeit we ain't played a full season, but I watched them in the spring game, and they executed very well. I'm not shocked to miss Steve Smith. He's 5 state championships. He's knocking on the door of 300 now, wins. I'm not shocked. The difference is Steve Smith. Steve Smith when he gets these guys fully bought in. This is going to be a conversation every year for a state championship.
Is he rocking the mullet there?
He did when he first arrived, and now he took it off. Those were bets, Corey. I don't know if you know this. He makes bets, made bets with his players at Piedmont. If we win, we'll do it. And then he had in 2020, had they won again, he said he was going to dye it blonde.
And then, both me and Corey got to talk about our alma maters, and Benjamin Russell on the floor. Etowah got a good win over Springville to get the season started as well. Just talk a little bit
No,
about them
they
in the
actually
Jameson
lost.
system area. Oh, they did?
They actually lost. Yeah.
Okay, I saw
they actually lost.
Wrong. Wow.
Yeah, no, yeah, they actually lost to Springville. Yeah, and a tough loss too. It's it was a bad outing. They lost, I believe it's 28-21. And
Okay,
yeah, you're right about Jameson. Yeah, you're right about Jameson System era. The problem that's happening right now is it's kind of shocking to the Italian community that they lost that game because that's they would probably been definitely favorites in that game. And Matt Glover's a good coach, so I know they're going to turn it around. They just had some troubles in the offensive line. They couldn't keep Jameson, couldn't set his feet. I mean, it's hard to break in a quarterback when he's not having a lot of time to throw the football. And kudos to Springville, man, because they're probably getting told all summer, well, we're about to lose to Etowah again because we lost to them last year by 30 or whatever. But kudos to them for stepping up and playing Etowah like they did and winning that game. And I know Matt Glover, sometimes a loss early is good, though, because you can get that game footage. You can flip this thing around. And as well as I do, most of your growth comes from week 1 to week 2. That's the old football cliche. And this gives Matt Glover a lot of good film that he can, kind of back this up on.
No doubt about it. So that'll wrap up our first Saturday morning recap show here on the Average Joe Sports Talk Network. We will be live each Saturday, 9:30 till right now at about 10:30. It'll take about an hour to run through all these scores from each Friday night as the season goes on. But, guys, we've looked forward to this time of year for the whole entire year. I was sitting there driving to the game on Thursday night to go do the Beauregard-Selma game and just was giddy with excitement. Just saying, man, I love this time of year. I mean, it's just the best time of year. You get football season going, and you just can't beat, Friday nights and Saturdays and Sundays in the fall.
Well, Corey, I'm gonna apologize for Corey because he don't get to experience this. We actually get some cold weather up here, Corey. I know you don't get any of that. But we get those fall mornings and fall evenings when it's in the 40s and the leaves are falling and in the 50s. Corey don't get to experience that, but you're right. That's when it hits me.
You're exactly right about that. I know I was joking with my broadcast partner Al Whedon this past week as we were preparing for this Blunt Viger game tonight. That last year when we broadcast 11 high school football games on the MCPSS television network, 9 out of the 11, I was in shorts. I only had to wear a jacket. I think it was cold for us, 45 degrees and windy at kickoff, and that didn't happen pretty much until mid-October. So you're absolutely right. As far as things falling, no, we don't have to worry about any pretty foliage out here for sure. But no, it definitely is my favorite time of the year, guys, and to be able to celebrate it with my best friends here on the Average Joe's Sports Talk Network. It doesn't get any better than that on a Saturday morning to recap what we have. And for those who still want to see high school football, Viger versus Blunt tonight.
Yes.
Opportunity to see that from Lad Peoples Stadium, expecting probably 8,000 to 11,000 people there at Lad Peoples Stadium tonight to see one of the best rivalries in high school football.
Another big matchup taking place today, too. It'll be the last time that we see Robert E. Lee and Sidney Lanier facing off with each other, as Lanier will combine with Carver. And then, Robert E. Lee has now changed their name over to Percy Julian High School as well. So really the last time that we'll get that big rivalry from the Montgomery area as well here today.
Yeah, that'll be a big one.
That wraps things up for us here. I want to thank the Henry House in Gunnersville. If you're looking at vacationing somewhere, check out Gunnersville, Alabama, and check out the Henry House in Gunnersville. They have 5 luxurious suites that you can stay in. They design these rooms to kind of give a different feel of different places throughout the whole entire country. Me and Bo got to visit that place during the summer and look around it. It is a Awesome place to be, a great place to go and vacation at. So make sure to go check out the Henry House. You can Google Henry House Gunnersville and they'll pop right up, and you can check out all the information you need. But if you're looking at vacation, looking just for a weekend getaway, the Henry House in Gunnersville is a great place to be. So for my partners, Corey LaBounty and Bo Starkey, I'm Caleb Brooks, and that will wrap things up for us here on our Week 0 coverage